First Contact Protocol. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the gleaming doors of the Global Xenocultural Research Institute, her heart pounding against her ribcage. The morning sun caught the building's crystalline architecture, designed specifically to accommodate both human and extraterrestrial visitors. Today wasn't just another day at the office. She was about to become Earth's first residential host for a Vardaxian researcher. Your psychological evaluations were exceptional, Dr. Chen. Director Williams said, reviewing the holographic display floating between them. But I need to ask one final time. Are you certain about this? Living with a Vardaxian isn't like hosting an exchange student. Their cognitive processes are fundamentally different. Sarah straightened her jacket, a gesture of confidence masking her inner nervousness. With all due respect, Director, that's precisely why I volunteered. We've had 2 decades of formal diplomatic relations with the Vardaxians, but we still barely understand their society. This is our chance to change that. The director's weathered face creased with concern. The Vardaxians don't experience emotions as we do. They process everything through pure logic and mathematical probability. Even their language is based on quantum algorithms, which is why they chose me. Sarah replied. My work on mathematical linguistics made this possible. Besides, she added with a slight smile, someone has to take the first step. The facility's AI announced the arrival of the Vardaxian shuttle. Sarah watched through the reinforced windows as the silver vessel descended, its architecture an impossible geometry that seemed to fold in on itself. The sight still took her breath away, even after years of working with extraterrestrial visitors. The being that emerged from the shuttle moved with fluid grace that defied physics. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, its crystalline exoskeleton shifted colors like oil on water, refracting the morning light in mesmerizing patterns. This was HFY 427, though Sarah had been authorized to use the simplified name XI for their day-to-day interactions. Greetings, Dr. Sarah Chen. XI's voice resonated at multiple frequencies simultaneously, the universal translator working overtime to process the complex harmonics. I calculate a 73.4% probability that our cohabitation will yield significant scientific insights. Sarah bowed slightly, remembering the cultural briefings. Welcome to Earth, XY. I look forward to our collaboration. The first few hours were a crash course in xenocultural adaptation. XI needed to process every detail of Sarah's apartment, from the ambient temperature to the geometric arrangement of furniture. What Sarah saw as a cozy living space, XI analyzed as a complex equation of spatial relationships. Your dwelling exhibits inefficient use of 3-dimensional space, XI observed, their exoskeleton shifting to a deep blue frequency that Sarah had learned indicated intense calculation. Yet it produces a 62.8% increase in my cognitive processing speed. Fascinating. That's called comfort, Sarah explained, setting up the specialized environmental controls XI required. Humans often prioritize feeling over function. Feeling. XI's crystalline form pulsed with new patterns. Your species relies heavily on this non-quantifiable variable. It defies logical analysis. Sarah smiled, recognizing the familiar frustration in XI's harmonics. Not everything worthwhile can be measured. XI. Sometimes the most important discoveries come from embracing uncertainty. The Vardaxian's response was interrupted by an unexpected sound, rain beginning to fall outside. XI moved to the window with unprecedented speed, their exoskeleton blazing with colors Sarah had never seen before. This precipitation, it follows no predictable pattern, XI observed, pressing a crystalline appendage against the glass. Each droplet's path is unique, yet collectively they form a coherent system, like your human emotions. Sarah joined them at the window, struck by the insight. That's actually a beautiful analogy. Beauty is subjective, XI responded, but their harmonics carried a new note, something almost like wonder. Yet I find myself allocating 47.3% more processing power to observe this phenomenon than efficiency requires. As they stood together watching the rain, Sarah realized this was more than just a research project. It was a bridge between two fundamentally different ways of experiencing the universe. The Vardaxians might process reality through mathematics and logic, but they were capable of growth, of seeing beyond their programming. XY, she said carefully, would you like to go outside and feel the rain? Sometimes direct experience provides data that observation alone cannot. The Vardaxian's exoskeleton rippled with new patterns of light. That would be inefficient. A pause, then. Yet I calculate a 91.2% probability that it will enhance my understanding of human perspectives. Together, they stepped out onto the covered balcony. Sarah watched as XY extended a crystalline limb into the falling rain, their entire form illuminating with cascading patterns of light as each droplet made contact. The sensory input, it exceeds predicted parameters. XI's harmonics vibrated with something that wasn't quite emotion, but wasn't purely logical either. I am experiencing data in ways my algorithms cannot fully process. That's how humans feel most of the time, Sarah said softly. We're constantly experiencing things beyond our ability to fully understand them, but that's what makes life interesting. XI turned to her, their crystalline form shimmering with new possibilities. Perhaps there is logic in embracing the logic, a paradox worthy of further study. Sarah smiled, knowing this was just the beginning. The real challenge wouldn't be in bridging their biological differences, but in finding the common ground that lay beneath their different ways of processing reality. As she watched XY experiencing rain for the first time, she realized that sometimes the most profound understanding comes not from analysis, but from simply sharing a moment of wonder. Welcome to Earth, XY, she said again, but this time it felt less like a formal greeting and more like the start of an extraordinary journey. The language of trust. The Global Xenocultural Research Institute's monitoring systems registered another anomaly in apartment 2187. Sarah Chen's living quarters had been showing increasingly unusual energy patterns over the past week, but what caught Director Williams' attention this morning was different. Harmonious oscillations between human and Vardaxian biosignatures. Inside the apartment, Sarah sat cross-legged on her meditation cushion, facing XY. The Vardaxian's crystalline form pulsed with subtle frequencies as they attempted to mirror her posture. I fail to comprehend the purpose of voluntary physical stasis. XI's harmonics resonated through the room. Our species achieves optimal efficiency through constant motion. Sarah kept her eyes closed, maintaining her steady breathing. Sometimes stillness reveals patterns that movement conceals, like watching a pond until you can see the fish beneath the surface. An imprecise metaphor, XI responded, but their crystalline structure shifted to match the rhythm of her breathing. Yet, I detect neural patterns in your physiology that suggest increased cognitive function. Meditation isn't about function, Sarah explained, opening her eyes to find XI's form emanating soft, curious pulses of light. It's about understanding yourself. Self-awareness is fundamental to Vardaxian consciousness. XI stated, their harmonics carrying a note of what might have been pride. We process our existence through constant mathematical analysis. And how's that working out with understanding humans? Sarah asked with a slight smile. XI's exoskeleton rippled with colors that Sarah had learned indicated computational frustration. Human behavior remains resistant to quantitative analysis. Your species frequently acts against statistical probability and logical optimization, like inviting an alien to live in our homes. Precisely. The risk-reward calculations. XI paused, their colors shifting. You are employing humor. I have observed this cognitive pattern in our interactions with increasing frequency. Sarah stood, stretching muscles stiff from sitting. Humor helps us process contradictions. Speaking of which, would you like to try something completely illogical? XI's form pulsed with cautious interest. Your suggestions often violate efficiency protocols, yet consistently yield unexpected data. I'm going to teach you to cook. The Vardaxian's crystalline surface fractured into a kaleidoscope of confused frequencies. Vardaxians synthesize nutrients directly from energy. Food preparation serves no practical purpose. Exactly. Sarah grinned, heading to the kitchen. That's what makes it perfect. The next hour was a crash course in human cuisine and chaos theory. XY approached the task of making pasta with the same precision they applied to quantum mathematics, measuring ingredients down to the molecular level. The variables are too numerous, they complained, watching Sarah demonstrate how to knead dough. Temperature, pressure, timing. Each factor influences the others in unpredictable ways. That's what makes it an art, Sarah replied, guiding XI's crystalline appendages through the motions. Feel how the texture changes. Feel. XI's harmonics vibrated with new frequencies. The sensory input is complex, like the rain, but interactive. My processing cores are registering unfamiliar patterns. Sarah watched as XI's entire form began to resonate with the rhythm of kneading. You're not just observing anymore, are you? You're experiencing. The distinction is unclear. XI admitted, their colors shifting to deep, thoughtful hues. My protocols suggest maintaining objective distance, yet direct participation appears to yield superior data collection. As they worked together, Sarah noticed something extraordinary. XI's movements, usually precise and mechanical, began to flow more naturally. Their crystalline form started anticipating her actions, moving in harmony with her own motions. Your species invests significant resources in this ritual, XI observed as they shaped the pasta. Yet the nutritional output could be achieved more efficiently through synthetic means. But would synthetic means give us this? Sarah gestured to their collaborative creation. Would they teach us about each other? XI's form pulsed with new patterns as they processed this. The act of creation serves multiple functions beyond its primary purpose. This is inefficient, but beautiful. The Vardaxian was quiet for a moment, their crystalline surface reflecting the kitchen lights in mesmerizing patterns. I am beginning to understand why your species values these inefficiencies. They create connection patterns that my initial algorithms failed to predict. Later, as they sat together at the table, Sarah watched XI analyze the pasta with their sensory arrays. Though Vardaxians didn't eat in the human sense, they could process and understand the chemical compositions of substances. The molecular structure is irregular, XI noted, their harmonics carrying a new tone. Yet these irregularities appear to enhance rather than diminish the overall composition. Like your emotions. Like you. Sarah felt something warm bloom in her chest at these words. XI, that almost sounds like poetry. Poetry. The art of arranging words in patterns that prioritize aesthetic and emotional impact over informational efficiency. XI's form shimmered. Perhaps there is logic in exploring inefficient paths to discover new forms of efficiency. You know, Sarah said softly, that might be the most human thing you've ever said. XI's response was interrupted by an urgent alert from their shared research terminal. The crystalline being's form immediately shifted to sharp, alert frequencies. Priority message from Vardaxian High Command. XY announced, their harmonics tense. Anomalous readings detected in Earth's atmospheric composition. Sarah, they are requesting our immediate involvement in the investigation. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Their peaceful cultural exchange was about to become something much more complex. As she met XI's gaze, she realized that everything they'd learned about each other, about trust, understanding, and the value of different perspectives, was about to be put to the test. Together, she asked. XI's form pulsed with what she now recognized as determination. Statistical analysis suggests our combined approaches will yield optimal results. But beyond calculations, I trust you, Sarah Chen. The admission hung in the air between them, a bridge built of something stronger than logic or emotion alone. Whatever challenge awaited them, they would face it as partners who had learned to see the universe through each other's eyes. Shared discovery. The Institute's Emergency Response Center hummed with tension as holographic displays filled the air with cascading data streams. Sarah studied the atmospheric readings while XI's crystalline form pulsed with rapid calculations, their shared concern manifesting in different but complementary ways. The anomaly defies standard analysis patterns, XI announced, their harmonics sharp with urgency. Earth's atmospheric composition is shifting at a quantum level, but the cause remains unidentified. Show me the affected regions, Sarah requested, and the global hologram zoomed in on patches of disturbed atmosphere, spreading like watercolor across continents. Director Williams joined them, his face grave. The Vardaxian High Command is concerned this could be the precursor to a catastrophic chain reaction. They're offering full access to their atmospheric manipulation technology. With respect, Director, XI interrupted, their form flickering with intense frequencies. I calculate a 78.3% probability that conventional solutions will accelerate the deterioration. These patterns, they resemble nothing in our databases. Sarah stepped closer to the hologram, her eyes narrowing. Because we're looking at it wrong. XY, remember the pasta. The Vardaxian's crystalline surface rippled with confusion. This crisis bears no logical connection to human culinary practices. Not the food, the process. Sometimes irregularities enhance rather than diminish. What if this isn't atmospheric degradation? What if it's evolution? The emergency center fell silent as XI processed this perspective, their form emanating deep, thoughtful pulses. Accessing Earth's biological development archives. Comparing quantum signatures. Sarah, the probability matrices are shifting. Working in tandem, they began to reanalyze the data. Sarah's intuitive leaps complemented XI's precise calculations, their different approaches creating a more complete picture. The holographic displays transformed, revealing new patterns in the atmospheric disturbance. It's alive, Sarah breathed, watching the quantum shifts coalesce into recognizable patterns. The atmosphere isn't breaking down, it's responding to something. Like an immune system. Fascinating. XI's harmonics vibrated with excitement. Earth's atmosphere appears to be developing new molecular structures to counter an external stimulus. But what is triggering this response? The answer came from an unexpected source. A junior researcher burst into the room, clutching a tablet. Dr. Chen, we've detected unusual activity in the marine phytoplankton populations. They're evolving, almost overnight. The pieces clicked into place. Sarah turned to XY, seeing in their shifting colors that they'd reached the same conclusion. The ocean and atmosphere are linked in ways we never fully understood. The phytoplankton aren't just responding to changes, they're driving them. A planetary-scale adaptation event. XI confirmed, their form pulsing with what Sarah now recognized as wonder. Your Earth is not merely a collection of separate systems. It is alive, conscious, in ways our science never predicted. Director Williams frowned. That's a pretty big leap from some unusual readings. Is it? Sarah challenged, her voice strong with conviction. We've always known Earth's systems are interconnected, but we've studied them in isolation. The Vardaxians gave us the tools to finally see the bigger picture, and humans provided the conceptual framework to interpret it correctly. XI added, their harmonics carrying a new warmth when addressing Sarah. Our species' different approaches to understanding reality have created a unique opportunity for discovery. As they worked through the night, Sarah and XI developed a new model for understanding Earth's atmospheric changes. The Vardaxians' quantum sensors, recalibrated with Sarah's insights about biological systems, revealed an astonishing truth. Earth's biosphere was actively evolving to better protect itself from cosmic radiation. The phytoplankton are generating new compounds, Sarah explained to the assembled team of human and Vardaxian scientists. These compounds are being absorbed into the atmosphere, creating a more effective planetary shield. It's like the Earth is upgrading its own security system. Such self-optimization should be impossible without centralized coordination, A Vardaxian scientist objected, their crystalline form sharp with skepticism. Impossible by whose standards? XI countered, surprising everyone with the challenge to their own kind. Human science has long suggested that complex systems can develop emergent intelligence. We are witnessing the validation of theories our logic dismissed as inefficient. Sarah watched XY with pride, recognizing how far they'd come from their initial rigid adherence to pure mathematics. The Vardaxian had learned to embrace uncertainty, to see beauty in chaos, while still maintaining their analytical brilliance. So what do we do? Director Williams asked. How do we respond to these changes? We don't, Sarah and XI said simultaneously, sharing a look of perfect understanding. The appropriate action is to adjust our own systems to work in harmony with these natural processes, XI explained, their form glowing with calm certainty. Earth is not broken, it is evolving. Our role is to understand and adapt, not to interfere. As the crisis response shifted from prevention to observation and adaptation, Sarah found XY in their shared laboratory, their crystalline form emanating soft, contemplative frequencies. Your species continues to surprise me, XY admitted. Humans appear chaotic, inefficient, driven by emotional responses, yet you possess an intuitive understanding of complex systems that our logic-based approach often fails to grasp. Sarah smiled, touching her hand to XI's crystalline surface, feeling the warm resonance of their energy field. And your species' dedication to pure logic helped us quantify and understand something we might have only guessed at. We're stronger together. Indeed. XI's form shimmered with new patterns. Sarah, I have submitted a formal request to the Vardaxian High Command. I wish to extend my stay on Earth indefinitely. There is much more for us to learn from each other. The warmth in Sarah's chest had nothing to do with atmospheric changes. I was hoping you'd say that. After all, we've only just started cooking. XI's harmonics carried what could only be described as laughter, a sound no Vardaxian had ever made before. Perhaps next time, with fewer quantum calculations. No promises, Sarah grinned. But that's what makes it interesting, isn't it? As they turned back to their work, both knew that their partnership had evolved into something unprecedented, a bridge between logic and intuition, between calculation and feeling, and in that space between their different ways of seeing the world, new discoveries awaited. The bridge between worlds. The news of Earth's atmospheric evolution had spread across both human and Vardaxian societies, sparking intense debate and unprecedented cooperation. 3 months after their discovery, Sarah found herself standing before the combined Council of Earth and Vardaxian representatives, with XY by her side. Your findings challenge fundamental assumptions about planetary development. The Vardaxian High Commander's crystalline form pulsed with intense frequencies. Some within our hierarchy suggest this threatens the basis of our scientific understanding. Or perhaps, XI responded, their harmonics steady and confident, it expands it. Our rigid adherence to mathematical certainty has limited our perspective. Sarah stepped forward, her voice clear in the vast chamber. What we've discovered isn't just about Earth's atmosphere. It's about the possibility that life, in all its forms, is more interconnected and adaptive than either of our species realized. The chamber's holographic displays showed the latest data, a mesmerizing dance of quantum patterns as Earth's atmosphere continued its evolution. But more striking was the way human and Vardaxian scientists now work together in the research feeds, their different approaches creating new methods of understanding. The Vardaxian scientific community has always prided itself on absolute precision, a senior crystalline being observed, their form sharp with intensity. Yet these humans, with their intuitive leaps and emotional responses, have helped us see patterns we missed. How do we reconcile this? Perhaps, XI suggested, their form shimming with what Sarah now recognized as excitement. We have been precise about the wrong things. Humans taught me that precision without perspective is like calculating the exact dimensions of a rainbow while missing its beauty. Sarah couldn't help smiling at the metaphor. XI had come so far from their initial dismissal of imprecise language. The Vardaxian caught her expression, and their form pulsed briefly with shared understanding. "We propose," Sarah continued, "a new joint initiative, not just for studying Earth's atmospheric evolution, but for combining our species' different approaches to understanding the universe." The proposal sparked intense discussion. Human council members spoke of opportunities and possibilities, while Vardaxian representatives calculated probabilities and resource allocations. Yet something had changed in how they interacted. The crystalline beings now paused to consider emotional impacts, while the humans backed their enthusiasm with harder data. During a break in the proceedings, Sarah found XY in the chamber's observation deck, their form refracting the starlight in complex patterns. "Your heart rate indicates anxiety," XI noted as she approached. "Yet your neural patterns suggest satisfaction." Another human contradiction. "Hope," Sarah corrected, standing beside them to watch the Earth below. Sometimes the best outcomes come from embracing contradiction. Like a certain Vardaxian scientist I know who's learned to cook without measuring ingredients. XI's form rippled with what she now recognized as their version of amusement. "My latest attempt at your chocolate cake would be classified as a xenobiological hazard on 17 worlds. Yet the process of failure proved enlightening." "It's not just about the cake, is it?" Sarah asked softly. "You're different now." "We both are." Indeed, XI's harmonics carried new depths. "My latest self-analysis reveals significant changes in my processing patterns. I find myself considering possibilities before probabilities, potential before precision. My fellow Vardaxians have noticed." "Are you concerned about that?" "Concerned?" XI's form shimmered thoughtfully. "Another emotional state I'd once dismissed as inefficient. Now I understand it serves a purpose. But no, I am not concerned. I am excited. Our peoples have much to learn from each other." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent signal. The council was reconvening early. The Vardaxian High Command had reached a decision. As they hurried back to the chamber, Sarah felt XI's energy field brush against her arm, a gesture of support that would have been unthinkable months ago. They entered to find the room humming with anticipation. The High Commander's crystalline form dominated the center of the chamber. "We have analyzed the data, reviewed the proposals, and calculated the probabilities. Our conclusion is unexpected." Sarah held her breath as the commander continued. "The Vardaxian High Command hereby announces the establishment of the Joint Initiative for Hybrid Understanding. We recognize that our species' different approaches to knowledge are not opposing forces, but complementary tools for comprehending the universe." The announcement triggered a wave of reactions. Humans cheering, Vardaxians pulsing with intense frequencies of approval. But Sarah's attention was on XY, whose form had begun emanating colors she'd never seen before. "Your emotional state?" XI asked quietly, noting her expression. "I find myself experiencing unfamiliar response patterns to this outcome." "Joy," Sarah replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Pure joy. Sometimes the best discoveries aren't just about understanding the universe. They're about understanding each other." "An imprecise concept," XI noted, their harmonics warm. "Yet I find myself allocating increasing resources to processing such concepts. Perhaps that is what your poets mean by growth." The initiative would change both their worlds, opening new avenues of research and cooperation. But as Sarah watched humans and Vardaxians beginning to interact with new awareness and respect, she knew the real breakthrough wasn't in the science. It was in the space between calculation and intuition, between logic and emotion, between different ways of seeing the universe. It was in the understanding that diversity, of thought, of approach, of being, wasn't an obstacle to overcome, but a strength to embrace. "XY," she said suddenly, "I just realized something. When you first arrived, you calculated a 73.4% probability of significant scientific insights from our cohabitation." Indeed, their form pulsed with curiosity. Why do you mention this? I was wondering, what probability would you calculate now? XI was quiet for a moment, their crystalline surface dancing with complex patterns. I find myself unable to calculate exact probabilities regarding our interaction anymore, Sarah, and I believe that is the most significant insight of all. Evolution of understanding. 1 year after the formation of the Joint Initiative for Hybrid Understanding, the Global Xenocultural Research Institute had transformed. What was once a stark facility of clean lines and rigid protocols now housed a vibrant blend of human and Vardaxian approaches to science and life. Sarah walked through the newly designed quantum gardens, where crystalline structures pulsed in harmony with Earth's plants, creating an environment that symbolized the merger of their two worlds. XY floated beside her, their form emanating the soft, comfortable frequencies that had become their natural state around her. The first hybrid education program begins tomorrow, Sarah remarked, pausing to watch a group of young human scientists working alongside Vardaxian mentors. Did you ever imagine we'd come this far? Imagination was not part of my original programming, XI responded, their harmonics carrying a hint of humor. Yet I find myself engaging in this inefficient practice with increasing frequency. Yesterday, I spent 3.7 hours contemplating how different colors of light might taste. Sarah laughed, a sound that still fascinated XY. And what conclusions did you reach? That some questions are more valuable unanswered. Their form shimmered with contentment. Another concept I learned from you. They'd reached their shared laboratory, now a unique space that reflected both their approaches to understanding the universe. Holographic displays showed the latest data from Earth's evolving atmosphere, while handwritten notes and sketches covered traditional whiteboards. A small kitchen area occupied one corner. Their continued experiments in human cuisine had become legendary among both species. The latest atmospheric readings are remarkable, XI noted, accessing the data streams. Earth's biosphere continues to develop in ways neither of our species predicted. It's beautiful. You using that word still surprises me. Sarah smiled, beginning their morning research routine. Remember when you said beauty was an inefficient concept? I was processing with incomplete data, XI admitted, their form pulsing with warm frequencies. Much like our early assumptions about human Vardaxian cooperation, their work was interrupted by an incoming priority message. Director Williams appeared on the main screen, his expression excited. Sarah, XY, you need to see this. We're detecting similar atmospheric evolution patterns on 3 other worlds. The implications hit them both simultaneously. Sarah felt her pulse quicken as XI's form blazed with intense colors. They weren't just witnessing Earth's evolution. They were observing a galaxy-wide phenomenon that neither species could have understood alone. Life finds ways to protect itself, Sarah breathed, studying the new data. Not just on Earth, but everywhere. We just needed the right combination of perspectives to see it. Indeed. XI's harmonics carried deep satisfaction. Human intuition suggested the possibility. Vardaxian technology confirmed it. Together, we see what neither could perceive alone. As they worked to analyze the new data, Sarah noticed something different about their interaction. The barriers between their species' approaches had dissolved so gradually, she hardly noticed it happening. XI now made intuitive leaps while she found herself thinking in quantum probabilities. They had created something new together, not just in their research, but in themselves. XY, she said suddenly, do you remember asking me about the human concept of home? Their form pulsed with recognition. You said it was more than a dwelling place. I did not understand then. And now? XI was quiet for a moment, their crystalline surface reflecting the lab's lights in complex patterns. Now I understand that home is where one's patterns align with another's frequencies, where efficiency becomes secondary to connection. Where? They paused, searching for the right words, where the mathematics of existence include variables that cannot be quantified. Sarah felt warmth spread through her chest. That might be the most poetic thing you've ever said. Poetry. the art of expressing quantum truths through imprecise language. XI responded, their harmonics warm. Another human contradiction that has proven surprisingly efficient. Their moment was interrupted by the arrival of their first students, a mixed group of human and Vardaxian learners, eager to begin their training in hybrid understanding. Sarah watched as XY adjusted their form to a teaching configuration, noting how naturally they now adapted to human needs. "Welcome," they said together, Sarah's words and XI's harmonics blending perfectly. "Today we begin exploring not just the universe, but the different ways of perceiving it." As they began their lesson, Sarah caught glimpses of their reflections in XI's crystalline surface. Human and Vardaxian, emotion and logic, intuition and calculation, all working in perfect harmony. They had started as an experiment in cross-cultural understanding and become something more. Proof that the greatest discoveries come not from one way of thinking, but from the courage to embrace different perspectives. The universe, XI told their students, is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be experienced. This is what humans taught me. And sometimes, Sarah added, sharing a knowing look with her partner, the most precise calculations must make room for wonder. This is what the Vardaxians taught us. Together, they were writing a new chapter in the story of both their species, not through dominance or submission, not through forcing one way of thinking over another, but through the simple, profound act of learning to see through each other's eyes. As Earth's atmosphere continued its evolution above them, as new discoveries awaited across the galaxy, as their students began their own journeys of understanding, Sarah and XI stood together at the threshold of something greater than either of their species had imagined possible. The future would not belong to logic or emotion alone, but to those who could bridge the gap between different ways of knowing. In their differences, they had found not weakness but strength, not confusion but clarity, not discord but harmony. And in that harmony, both human and Vardaxian, they had found home.